It started like any other evening. A 73-year-old man, let's call him Frank, sat alone in the quiet hum of his living room. The same creaky recliner. The same old TV murmuring in the background. The same habit he'd carried for decades, a private, harmless moment of release. Something that had always brought him comfort, control, a familiar rhythm. But that night, something was different. What should have been just another routine, ended in something he never expected, a complete loss of sensation in one leg. Then a terrifying tightness in his chest. He thought it was just a cramp. It wasn't. And what followed changed the way he looked at his body, and his manhood, forever. Now, before your mind goes racing off the edge, this isn't a scare tactic. Frank didn't get hurt because he was pleasuring himself. He got hurt because no one ever told him the right way to do it at his age. What his heart could take. What his blood vessels were trying to tell him. What his generation was never taught to even ask. And that's why we're here. Because whether you're 63 or 83, there are truths about self-pleasure that could mean the difference between quietly suffering or thriving in your golden years. In this video, we're going to answer 3 questions that every man over 60 deserves honest answers to. 1. Is it still safe to masturbate after 60? 2. Can something that once gave you strength now quietly be draining you? 3. What's the one secret almost no doctor tells older men, yet could change how you age forever? I'm Dr. James, a men's health specialist. And I've spent over 30 years sitting across from men just like you, men with good hearts and quiet questions they've carried for far too long. Today, I want to share 5 things every aging man should know about masturbation. Because your body is changing. And it deserves respect, care, and the truth. So take a deep breath. Pour a cup of tea. Let's talk about the part of your health you've likely never talked about before. Because it's time. Time to learn the things no one ever told you, before it's too late. Frank's story might sound unusual. But it isn't. I've had dozens of men, older than 60, walk into my office and say, "Doc, is it still normal to, at my age?" There's a pause. A glance at the floor. Sometimes even a little chuckle to cover the discomfort. And I always say the same thing. Let's stop calling it normal or not. Let's talk about what's healthy. Which brings us to our first truth. Truth number 1, your erection is not your manhood. That's hard to hear, I know. Most of us were raised to believe our worth as men is tied to how strong we are, how long we last, how hard we can get. But those ideas came from locker rooms, late-night comedies, and glossy magazine covers that never showed what aging actually looks like. In real life, our bodies shift. Blood flow slows. Sensations change. And here's the kicker, orgasm and erection are not the same thing. Let me tell you about Charles. He's 72. Widowed for 5 years. One day, he came into my office, cheeks red with shame, eyes brimming with frustration. "I feel like the lights are on, but nobody's home," he said. I told him the truth, "Charles, your body isn't broken. It's evolving." With a little guidance, he learned that pleasure doesn't have to mean performance. He learned how to touch himself with patience instead of pressure. And 2 months later, he told me something I'll never forget. "Doc," he said, "I feel like I have hope again." And that's what this is all about. Hope. Presence. Connection, not just to another person, but to yourself. Because you are not just your erection. You are a whole man. And you deserve to feel whole. Now, let me ask you something personal. Have you ever found yourself doing it, not out of desire, but just because you were bored? Or lonely? Or couldn't sleep? You're not alone. That brings us to truth number 2. Masturbation is not just physical. It's emotional. It's neurological. Let's rewind a bit. Think back to when you were younger. Maybe in your 20s. Back then, a release felt like fire. Fast. Intense. Overwhelming. Now, it might feel more like a slow exhale. Or sometimes, nothing at all. That's not because your body doesn't work. It's because your brain, your most powerful sexual organ, has changed. You see, masturbation in your later years becomes more than just a release. It becomes a reset button. A stress reliever. A quiet ritual that helps you feel like you again. But here's the risk. If it becomes mindless, something you do without thinking, without presence, it can start to numb you instead of nourish you. Let me introduce you to Howard. Howard was a retired vet in his 70s. He wasn't struggling physically, but he told me he felt hollow. Like he was going through life on autopilot. As we talked, it became clear he used masturbation as a way to calm himself. Not because he was aroused, but because he was anxious. And that's not wrong. In fact, it's deeply human. But the difference is awareness. Because when you bring presence into those private moments, when you stop to breathe, to notice, to feel, it transforms the experience. It becomes connection. To your body. To your mind. To your emotions. Because you still have all of those things, my friend. And they still deserve your attention. Now, let's address something most men don't realize until it's too late. You've probably heard the phrase, use it or lose it. Sounds harsh, right? But here's the science behind it. Truth number 3, inactivity is the real enemy, not age. As we get older, blood vessels narrow. Nerve endings dull. Tissues begin to shrink, not because something's wrong, but because the body thinks it's no longer needed. Think about your muscles. If you stop using your legs, they weaken. Same goes for your sexual system. I remember Roy. Roy was 74. He hadn't been intimate in over a decade, not even with himself. Not because he didn't want to, but because life had just gotten away from him. When he met someone new, he was thrilled. But his body? It didn't respond. Not right away. He thought he was broken. He wasn't. He was just rusty. With time, care, and gentle practice, Roy began to feel again. To awaken parts of himself he thought were long gone. And here's the truth, you don't need a partner to keep that part of yourself alive. You just need presence, curiosity, consistency. Because when you stop touching yourself with intention, your body slowly forgets how to respond. And the longer it forgets, the harder it is to remember. Let's go deeper. Because while the body can forget, the mind, especially the aging mind, can be rewired in ways most men never suspect. And this next truth might be the one you didn't even realize you needed to hear. Truth number 4, porn is not harmless, especially after 60. Let me be clear, this isn't about judgment. This is about what's happening inside your brain. Let's go back to Frank for a moment. Remember him? The 73-year-old from the beginning. What I didn't tell you is that for the last several years, Frank had gotten into the habit of watching explicit videos every night. It started as something light, just a few minutes here and there. But slowly, he needed more. Stronger scenes, faster stimulation, louder noises. He couldn't finish without it. And over time, something tragic happened. He could no longer feel arousal from anything real. A warm hand, a soft voice, even his own memory of past intimacy. It was like his mind had built a wall between what was real and what was stimulating. We call this arousal fatigue. It happens when your brain gets used to high-speed, high-intensity images. The dopamine rush becomes the only thing that feels enough. And when it's gone, regular touch, real closeness, even emotional connection, feels dull. Now, this might sound dramatic, but for older men, the stakes are higher. Because the aging brain doesn't bounce back the way it used to. Neural pathways, the routes your mind takes to feel pleasure, become harder to reroute with age. The longer you rely on artificial stimulation, the harder it becomes to feel anything else. Ernest, a 68-year-old widower, came to me feeling utterly defeated. He hadn't been with anyone in years, and late-night videos had become his only escape. But something inside him still longed for connection. He wanted to date again, to feel something real. We started a detox plan. It was slow, gentle, no shame, just a quiet weaning off of the habit. Within 3 months, he could feel something again, not just physically, but emotionally. His touch began to mean something. His imagination returned. And slowly, so did his hope. Now, this isn't a call to never watch adult content again. It's a call to ask yourself why you do. Are you using it to feel, or to avoid feeling? Because what your brain craves is not just stimulation. It craves story, connection, emotion, meaning. And those things can't be found in pixels. They can only be found in presence. Let's bring it all home. Because there's one final truth most men over 60 never get to hear. It's a truth that doesn't just belong in a medical chart, but in your heart. Truth number 5, masturbation can be a lifeline when done with awareness. Walter was 77. He came into my office holding back tears. "Doc, I haven't touched myself in 6 years. Not since my wife passed. I just figured that part of my life was over." He wasn't sick. He wasn't depressed. But he was slowly unraveling. He had trouble sleeping. His blood pressure had risen. His mood darkened. His world felt smaller, quieter, duller. We talked. Not about sex, but about connection. About what it means to feel alive. To remember you still have a body. Still have a right to feel. To enjoy. To want. With gentle encouragement, Walter began exploring his body again. Not with guilt. Not with urgency. With kindness. It wasn't about climax. It was about remembrance. And the transformation? He came back 6 weeks later with a softness in his face I hadn't seen before. "I didn't know I was allowed to still be a man," he said. And I told him what I'm telling you now. You are still a man. You still deserve pleasure. You still matter. Masturbation isn't a substitute for intimacy, it's a form of it. It's a way to tell yourself, I am still here. So if you've been wondering whether this part of your life is behind you, it's not. If you've been worried that what you're doing is shameful, it isn't. If you've been feeling like you're slowly losing touch with who you are, you're not. You're simply standing at the edge of rediscovery. And what you find on the other side of that quiet, private moment, when you choose to touch your body with care instead of criticism, might just be the most human thing you'll ever feel again. Let's quickly recap the truths we've uncovered. Your erection is not your manhood. Masturbation is emotional, neurological, and deeply personal. Use it or lose it is real, but you can get it back. Porn may be rewiring your brain without you knowing it. And finally, done with presence, solo pleasure is a gift. A lifeline. A way to stay alive, body, mind, and spirit. Now, let's wrap up with a story. There's an old man, let's call him Joe, who lives at the edge of a wooded lake in northern Michigan. Every morning, he gets up before the sun. He walks out to the shore, listens to the wind and the trees, and dips his hand in the cold, clear water. He says it makes him feel real. One day, the younger man asked him why he keeps doing it. Why bother waking up so early just to touch the lake? Joe smiled. Because it reminds me I'm still here. And that's what this video is about. You're still here. Still breathing. Still feeling. Still worthy of being touched, with love, with care, with presence. This isn't about sex. It's about being alive. And if that means rediscovering your own body again, then may you do it not with shame, but with grace. Because you've earned that. You've lived long enough to know that what matters most is what still makes you feel. So here's what I want you to do next. If this video helped you, type 1 in the comments. If you've ever felt unsure about this part of your life, say so. We're building a space for men to speak the truth without fear. And if you're ready to take the next step in understanding your health as an aging man, click the video on screen now. It could change how you age forever. Let's take a breath together. You've made it through something most men never dare to face head-on, the truth about aging, sexuality, and the quiet rituals that define who we are behind closed doors. And now, one last insight. One that ties all 5 truths together into something even deeper than health or habit. It's about identity. Because when a man loses touch with his sexuality, especially in his later years, he doesn't just lose arousal. He loses a part of himself. He starts to shrink inside. Stops seeing himself as someone who deserves pleasure. Starts moving through life as if the light inside him has dimmed. You know the kind of man I'm talking about. You've seen him. Maybe you've been him. He's the one who stops laughing as much. Who forgets what it feels like to wake up curious. Who avoids mirrors because he doesn't recognize the eyes staring back. Not because he's vain. Because he's grieving. Grieving the man he used to be. And unsure if there's still something beautiful waiting in the man he's becoming. But I have a message for that man. A message for you. You are not disappearing. You are evolving. You're not past your prime, you're in a different kind of prime. One that isn't measured by speed or strength, but by depth and meaning. By what you feel inside, not just what you can do on the outside. And that's where solo pleasure becomes something more than physical. It becomes sacred. Not in a religious sense, but in a human sense. A quiet act of reclaiming your body, your breath, your worth. When you lay your hand on your chest and say, "I'm still here." When you explore your body, not out of habit, but out of reverence. That's when something shifts. You stop being afraid of aging, and you start feeling alive through it. Let me leave you with a scene I've never forgotten. There was a man in his early 80s who came to one of my workshops. Let's call him Al. Al had been single for 15 years. He told me his hands felt more like tools than instruments of love. He didn't feel like touching himself made sense anymore. "Why bother?" he said. We spent the weekend talking, not about sex, but about stillness. About memory. About what it means to be a man who's lived a full life and still has parts of himself waiting to be discovered. On the last night, he came up to me, tears quietly streaking his cheeks. He said, "Dr. James, I don't think I've ever touched myself with love before. Not once in my whole life. I always did it to get it over with. I didn't know it could feel like coming home." That sentence has lived in my heart ever since. And I hope, in some way, it now lives in yours. So if no one has told you this yet, let me be the one. You are not broken. You are not too old. You are not done. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to want. You are allowed to be tender with yourself in ways you never were taught to be. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest intimacy you'll ever experience isn't with someone else. It's with the version of you who finally stops hiding and steps into the light of who he really is. Whole, worthy, and still wonderfully alive. What to do next? If this spoke to something in you, I invite you to do one small thing today. Go somewhere quiet. Sit with yourself. No agenda. No goal. Just listen. And if touch comes, let it. Not to chase pleasure, but to meet yourself. And if you feel something, anything, that's not weakness. That's life. Flowing through you still. Now, before you go, there's a video I want you to watch next. It's about how small changes in your daily routine after 60 can double your energy, improve your circulation, and restore your confidence in ways you didn't think were possible. It's not just about health. It's about freedom. Click on that video now. I'll meet you there. Until then, stay curious. Stay kind to yourself. And never forget. The body may age, but the right to feel, the right to connect, the right to be fully, gloriously alive, that never expires.